apartheid in the West Bank where there is no Hamas. So yes, Hamas does despicable things, but these talking points, with all respect, people don't believe them anymore. People don't believe them anymore.
Hamas is the one.
Hamas is the one for expelling the entire population. Did you not hear that?
I mean, come on.
Come on.
Come on what?
He's got his envoy over there.
The single thing that you've said is an Israeli government talking point. The question is, if you're so confident, yes, no. With all due respect, I've suffered a lot more from Hamas people I know than you have. With all due respect, if you want to test,
I had family members murdered and taken hostage who had sexual atrocities committed against them.
Do you think they want
no
children to
human
starve to
dignity?
death?
They were treated like animals.
Obviously.
Let me finish. How about that? Okay?
I'm just asking.
Yes,
You
of
blame
course.
Israel and you blame the U.S., but we haven't heard Hamas shit.
I actually have one of my closest friends in college was blown up by Hamas. I have a problem. That is the irony. You guys are talking about how much you hate Hamas. I hate Hamas just as much as you. Hamas is still there. The Palestinian people are starving to death.
I didn't see any blood on his body, but then he started bleeding from his mouth. I started calling his name, Ibrahim, Ibrahim. He said, take me to my mom. Take me to my mom, please, Dad, pull me out.
Hello, everybody. Guys, let's get right into this segment. I'm just warning you now, the first 3 minutes is really hard to watch, truly sickening and nauseating. And then Scott Jennings' behavior here, I mean, I shouldn't be surprised, but it's truly no compassion, no empathy, no soul. Check this out and we'll talk about it.
Good evening. I'm Abby Phillip in New York. I ask that you not look away from what you're about to see, as the U.S. and many in the West seem to be doing right now. In Gaza, hungry children are telling their parents they want to go to heaven because at least heaven has food. Nearly 2 years into this war between Israel and Hamas, we've hit an inflection point tonight that pays no mind to politics, rhetoric, or religion. Gaza is on the brink of a famine, as more Palestinians, particularly children, are starving to death. Parents are desperate and helpless to save their babies. Many are too young to voice their hunger, but it's spoken loudly in their tears and the heartbreaking images of their barely covered bones. The rescue committee says their small bodies are shutting down. They can't breathe. Their immune systems are collapsing. The UN says nearly 1 in 3 people are now going days without eating. Hospitals, already overwhelmed and overflowing with survivors from bombs and airstrikes, they're now seeing a sharp rise in starvations. And among those dying are the ones waiting for food. According to the Palestinian Ministry of Health, more than 1,000 people have died trying to receive supplies from aid trucks since late May, in the rare instances that they are available. And that includes a 13-year-old boy who was killed by Israeli gunfire. His name was Ibrahim, waiting to get flour for his family, according to his dad. The World Food Program says Israeli snipers and tanks opened fire on the crowd of families rushing to the truck. In some instances, Israel has denied firing on crowds, and in others calls them warning shots. But CNN spoke to more than a dozen eyewitnesses who say otherwise. The UN says that Israel is the one that decides when and how much enters the desperate region. Israel, which imposed a total siege from March until May, denies being responsible for any famine. Instead, they're blaming Hamas for stealing food. But the question tonight is, why is the United States so silent about this crisis? Both the Biden and Trump administrations have been criticized for their lack of pressure on Prime Minister Netanyahu and Israel. But we're learning the current White House doesn't even have a top official focused on humanitarian aid in Gaza. That's despite the situation growing more dire by the hour. And hours can make all the difference for parents, many of whom only have their children's last words left.
I didn't see any blood on his body, but then he started bleeding from his mouth. I started calling his name, Ibrahim, Ibrahim. He said, take me to my mom. Take me to my mom, please, Dad, pull me out.
Joining us at our table in the fifth.
And I just have to say how anyone can still support this, Democrat, Republican. Don't you think it's gone too far? Has it gone too far yet? I mean, this is incredible. There's no justification. We'll get into it.
Seat is Peter Beinart, author of Being Jewish After the Destruction of Gaza. Peter, you have written about this, obviously. You've been critical of Israel's conduct in this war, but I wonder if you feel like this moment, these images that are coming out about the humanitarian situation is, in fact, an inflection point.
Why did it take this long? I mean, in November of last year, the International Criminal Court issued a warrant for the arrest of Benjamin Netanyahu for the war crime of starvation 8 months ago, before Israel cut off all food, all water, all electricity into the Gaza Strip for 3 months. And to say the United States is silent, it's much, much worse than that. We are profoundly complicit and deeply responsible. It is our weapons that enforce this starvation. It is our diplomatic efforts that prevent international justice from being done. The blood is on our hands as Americans because it is our weapons that is responsible for those children starving to death.
No blood for the hands of Hamas?
Hamas has
Is
lots
there no
of...
blood
No,
on
no,
their
no.
hands?
Why don't you let me finish? How about that? Okay?
I'm just
Okay?
asking.
Yes,
You
of
blamed
course.
Israel and you blamed
sorry,
the U.S., but we haven't heard Hamas yet. I'm just
I
asking.
actually have... One of my closest friends in college was blown up by
asking.
Hamas. I have probably a lot more experience with suffering from Hamas, with all due respect, than you do. Let's say this. If we want to see who is more to blame for the starvation of children in Gaza, Hamas or Israel, let CNN in. Israel has not allowed Western journalists in since October 7th. Let them go in, let CNN go in, and decide for themselves. How about that?
How about Hamas releases the hostages and gets a ceasefire?
And let me think, what do you think would happen if
Peter,
Hamas
Peter,
released
just give me
the
one
hostages?
second. Scott, let me ask you a question, because Hamas is responsible for October 7th. Hamas is responsible for a lot of terrible things. But the question is, who can alleviate the starvation at this moment in Gaza? And does Israel have a responsibility to do much more than it is doing right now? And what do you say to that?
Well, my view is Hamas started the war. The suffering of the people in Gaza is their direct responsibility of what Hamas has done. Hamas took money for years, and instead of doing anything for the people of Gaza, built tunnels for this siege.
Controlling the flow.
I want to answer it.
But what about Israel's role in controlling the flow of food?
Yeah.
I just want us to set the table here, because I understand that there's a lot of political talking points around this, but this is a conversation about human beings and about the things that they need in order to survive, which is food and water. And the question I have for you is there a moment for you where you sit here and you think, yeah, maybe more can be done? And at what point should the United States government say that?
Well, we are saying that. Number one, Hamas has weaponized aid. They've stolen it from the United Nations to resell it to finance their war. Some people think they've made $1 billion stealing and weaponizing this aid. That's not the United States doing. That's Hamas doing. That's number one. Number two, they've made unreasonable demands in these hostage negotiations. We're on the brink of a hostage deal and a ceasefire. They've blown that up today with Israel and now the United States having to walk away from an unreasonable situation. It is blatantly obvious that Israel and the United States wants the hostages home, they want a ceasefire, and they want to feed the people in Gaza. Hamas does not.
Can I just add? The Israeli government's stated position is to support the Trump plan for the full expulsion of all Palestinians from Gaza. And I would remind you, there is no Hamas leadership in the West Bank. How are Palestinians being treated in the West Bank, where Hamas is not in control, where there are no Hamas fighters? Palestinians are being expelled from their homes, living under conditions that even Israel's own human rights organizations call apartheid in the West Bank, where there is no Hamas. So yes, Hamas does despicable things, but these talking points, with all respect, people don't believe them anymore. People don't believe them anymore.
All they have to do is release the hostages.
I just want to play, hold on a second, Scott. I want to play.
Scott is such a vile asshole. No one is on the side of Hamas. What they did on October 7th. I mean, but is anyone really surprised about Scott's behavior here? He defends anything. Defends anything Trump does. Even with the Epstein files. These conservatives are gasping for air trying to defend Trump and his clear involvement. And the other obvious, just extremely obvious part to me that I can't help but notice is, aside from him not having any empathy, any sympathy, any level of compassion, but it comes to only a specific type of people. When it comes to people of color, when it comes to the Jewish students on campuses. He freaks out in their defense. I mean, losing his mind with passion because they can't go into class. Children are being slaughtered. Nothing from this guy. When it comes to Trump saying Haitians are cats and dogs, I've shown it way too many times. He freezes for a minute and then has a meltdown, a complete meltdown, and trying to justify Trump's racism there. When it comes to immigrants, he cannot help his racism Tourette's. He cannot help it. But the next few words are going to mention violent, gangbanger, whatever vile thing he can come up with. Israeli government? Oh, no. They can slaughter, literally slaughter innocent effing children. And this isn't, and I've seen this in the comments before, Scott is like a performer. This isn't a performance. This is who Scott is. This is who a lot of conservatives are. No empathy, no soul, no compassion. And for the Democrats that are okay with this, how effing dare you even call yourself a Democrat? And how can you even fight for things like the Epstein files and for accountability being held for the child trafficking ring, but being completely okay with kids being slaughtered? Where's the effing logic in this? Somebody please help me. How does this... And Scott Jennings' behavior here is just one of the many things that comes with this membership of the Trump cult.
Cindy McCain, she's the executive director of the World Food Program, and she talked about what is happening right now in terms of the actual administration of aid and what it could be. And she knows that because she's done it before. Watch.
When we had full access, we had 400 distribution sites. We were getting in 600 trucks a day. So the capability that we have is unmatched by any other organization or any other foundation. And we know where our food goes because we have a system on the ground that is tested and works. We need full sustained access. We need at scale so we can set up the kinds of aid stations that can actually help people and do it where it's not a panic situation.
Cindy's right. Let me just say from the outset, Hamas is responsible for what happened in Gaza. They don't negotiate in good faith. They are a terrorist organization. Having said that, Israel needs to be doing far more than they're doing to allow food to come in or to provide it themselves. And having spent much of the last 3 years in the Muslim world, you ought to see how the U.S. is being portrayed there for standing by and being silent, at least on this. Now, Hamas, they are a terrorist organization. I don't speak for them, but Israel needs to do more, and America needs to do more to force them to allow food in. It's heartbreaking to see what's going on. I served meals in southern Turkey after the earthquake with somebody from World Central Kitchen who later went to Gaza and was killed by a strike. Wow. They're serving meals there. It's a horrible situation. Anybody who can watch what we just watched and say, no, Israel's doing enough, the U.S. is doing enough, we're not.
Yeah, I mean, she said 400 distribution sites is what they typically would have to feed a population of that size. We're talking about 4 now. And then at those sites, I can show you the headlines. I mean, dozens killed in separate incidents over the course of the last several weeks, just trying to get aid at those sites, creating incredibly dangerous conditions. It just seems, Abel, at this moment, it's not actually asking all that much for there to be more than what is happening right now, because what's happening right now is clearly not even close to being enough.
Abby, to look at the images, obviously it's painful, especially I'm a father. There's a lot of us here who are fathers, to see these kids. But then Hamas is just, they portray as a political party. They're a syndicate. They're a gang. They are a terrorist organization. I've been to Sderot. I've been to Ashdod, little cities right next to Gaza. These kids wake up in the morning, there's a kazan coming over their head. They're going into these culverts that they paint them as snails so these kids can play in culverts to protect themselves. This is bad. President Donald J. Trump, wants a couple of things. Scott mentioned it. He wants a ceasefire. He wants this to end. This guy does not want war. President Trump wants this to end.
He's called for mass expulsion.
Hamas
He
is
wants
the
to build
one.
a hotel.
Hamas is the
Called for
one that's
expelling the entire population. Did you not hear that?
I mean, come on. Come on.
Come on.
Come on what?
He's got his envoy over there right now.
That's the official Israeli position to facilitate the Trump. Why are 3 of those 4 aid centers all in the extreme south of Gaza on the border of Egypt? Because Israel's own defense minister has said, we are implementing the Trump plan. Gazans can only live on 12% of Gaza now, which is already one of the most overcrowded places on earth, because Israel is facilitating the Trump plan, moving the population into a tiny area, making life so hellish and so miserable that they hope that as many people who don't die will leave. That's official Israeli policy.
Release the hostages, create a ceasefire, end the war, get back to normal. That's the plan.
What is normal here, though?
Look,
Donald Trump just burned
one kazam here in New York, I can tell you what the
$800
people in New York would do.
food.
They get kazams every day in those little towns.
Gaza
in
was
Israel.
under Israeli occupation, has been under Israeli occupation since 1967. You know, most of the people in Gaza are not from Gaza. They're from families of refugees that were expelled from Israel in 1948. That's where they're there in the first place.
Let me let Kat have a word in. Go ahead.
I am from one of those.
Really quick, Hispanic Vince McMahon is struggling. Oh, come on. We're just wiping out children and the whole population of people as he looks for his paper for talking points. You keep looking, idiot. You will find no answers that justify the starving of a population, you absolute monster. He dares mention his family. That's just amazing to me. Just incredible. How do you think the Palestinian families are doing? You piece of... This is what the party of family values, right? The party of Christian values? How about the party of wiping out families? The party of child abuser excusers? Like, I'm seeing a trend, a pattern here of sorts about how conservatives feel about the causing of harm to children. And it's not just Republicans when it comes to this issue of Israel. There's Democrats there too. Again, has it gone too far yet? Look at the first 3 minutes of this segment and tell me, has it gone too far?
Families. My father's parents were Nakba survivors. I do not want Israeli children to live in fear, and I don't want Gazan children to starve to death. And there is no enemy of either state that could want me to wish that or excuse the starvation of children. It is that simple. Food is being blocked. It is being blocked. This is a man-made humanitarian disaster. It could stop at any point. We could be putting pressure on this.
Yeah, they launch missiles from hospitals. They launch missiles from preschools.
Okay,
There is
This is who
nothing.
Hamas is.
There is nothing.
Hold on a
no
second.
agency that could excuse this.
Let me ask you to respond exactly to what she said. What is the rationale for blocking food?
I don't believe
Period.
food is big. There's 950 trucks sitting there with food rotting right now that the UN won't distribute.
Because
Why
they're
is
not
the
allowed
UN
in.
in
Hold on,
cahoots with
hold on.
Hamas? I don't understand.
What are you?
I don't understand.
Scott, I'm not sure what you're referring to.
There's 950 trucks
Scott,
with
I'm not
food
sure what
sitting
you're
at
referring
this
to.
moment.
Israel and the United States have put together a program to distribute food.
Yes.
Because they don't want the UN to be a part of it. They want to do it themselves. But that program is what everyone is saying is failing. In fact,
Not everyone.
In fact,
The starving children are.
There is a statement here from 100 human rights groups that says, as the Israeli government's siege starves the people of Gaza, aid workers are now joining the same food lines, risking being shot to feed their families. With supply now totally depleted, humanitarian organizations, they're witnessing their own colleagues and partners waste away before their eyes. The government of Israel's restrictions, delays, and fragmentation under its total siege have created chaos, starvation, and death. Again, this is within the power of Israel to alleviate this. And even if the idea is that Hamas is stealing some of the aid, the quantity of aid, Scott, that is coming into Gaza right now is not even close to what is necessary to feed the population. So it would be one thing if they were giving as much food as was necessary and Hamas was stealing all of it, but that's not what's happening.
Look, regarding the United States, to Senator Flake's point, regarding our position in this, I think the administration's support of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation effort I think they're the only people right now that are actually successfully delivering aid in a way that it is not being stolen. I think one of the main problems is the aid that's going in. It's being looted and stolen by the terrorists.
I mean, Scott, based on
GHF has done a good job.
Just one second, because based on, I just played the Cindy McCain sound, and I almost feel like we might need to play it again.
Even if it was getting stolen, worst case scenario, even if it was getting stolen and sold, what does that mean? So we just take all the food out and let everyone die? Like, where's the logic in this? These people are disgusting.
And because she's being very clear. She runs an organization that knows how to distribute food. And she is saying there are other ways to do this that are better and more effective, and they are not being allowed to do it. Why are they not being allowed to do it?
I don't think Donald Trump wants children in Gaza to starve.
Why did he just literally incinerate $800 million worth of emergency food? Why did he do that
I'm
then?
simply saying that the U.S. could do more to put pressure on Israel to allow the food in and to be distributed. That's what I'm saying.
Well,
I don't think
that
that he wants
U.S.
to.
walking away from negotiations is just a negotiation tactic, because we got to be back at the
I
table.
was going to say, we are
I will
debating
also
basic
say
human dignity
that
here.
I also will say that.
And I don't want to hear Trump and children in the same sentence. I'm sorry. To hear him, oh yeah, he cares about these children. Really?
Obviously, the negotiations around the end to the war are important, but they are actually separate, because the humanitarian situation, you know, there are rules of the road about how you conduct wars. And the starvation of populations is not part of the rules of the road.
Yeah, why won't Hamas follow the rules?
Regardless, hold on, Scott, regardless of whether or not they come to the negotiating table and negotiate a peace deal, the question will remain, who is going to feed the population in Gaza?
Because when you're delivering aid and Hamas is looting it and shooting people trying to get it, that means the war is still going and it's hard to deliver it, I would think.
Every single thing that you've said is an Israeli government talking point. The question is, if you're so confident, yes, no. With all due respect, I've suffered a lot more from Hamas people I know than you have. With all due respect, if you want to test these things, why don't you call for Israel to allow Western journalists in to go and check for themselves to see whether you're right?
You want me to call on?
Why don't you ask Israel to allow Western journalists to go in, not to micromanage, to go on the ground and do reporting, which is what organizations like CNN do, and look for themselves.
Peter, it's war.
He was there for like 2 months. What the hell were you doing there? I'm sure you were talking to the Israeli government. What the hell were you doing in Israel?
They invaded Israel.
Yes, there is a war, Israel. What Hamas did on October 7th were war crimes. They were utterly despicable and immoral. It is also the case that Palestinians have been under occupation under a condition that even Israel's own human rights organizations call apartheid. Israel's own human rights organizations. Since 1967. That is the reality that existed on October 6th. And if you want to keep everybody safer, just as you were saying, if you want to keep Israeli Jews safer, many Israeli Jews are very, very close to me, including my own family. If you want to keep them safe, you have to also keep Palestinians safe. And Palestinians will not be safe if they are under conditions of bondage and apartheid. They have to be free.
Our fates are intertwined. There is no other way about it. And if you want safe Israelis, if you want safe Palestinians, you have to recognize that those are tied together. We can't be debating basic human dignity here. If people deserve to be starved.
Do you think the people who were murdered and raped and taken hostage on October 7th were given basic human dignity?
Of course
not. Because I don't.
Those are war crimes.
When I went to the Nero's Kibbutz, when I went to the Nova Music Festival site, and I heard the firsthand stories of the people who had family members murdered and taken hostage, who had sexual atrocities committed against them.
Do you think they want children to starve to death?
Scott,
they were treated like animals.
Obviously, the perpetrator.
Everyone agrees. Everyone agrees that Hamas is disgusting. But again, how can you have that passion, that compassion, that empathy for the Jewish people, but see those clips of the Palestinian people and feel nothing? Over 10,000 Palestinian children dead by now? Feel nothing? How can you justify it? And then this thing about Hamas is so terrible. Yes, they're horrible. So do you think we should be matching them? We should do the same thing they're doing, in fact, worse? Should we be playing in that field? Like, what are you saying?
Of October 7th are despicable.
And they're still in charge.
Hold on, the perpetrators of October 7th are despicable. But the question is, are you holding a 3-month-old baby who is starving to death accountable for things that that baby did not do?
No, I'm holding Hamas accountable.
Okay, so that's why.
But you know what?
That's why the question is so important here at this table. Look, I want to have this conversation with respect for everybody involved, but it's so important to remember that we are not talking about talking points. We are talking about human beings, and there are people who are starving, children who are starving in Gaza today who had absolutely nothing to do with what happened on October 7th. And I hope that there's a part in our minds that can hold those ideas together at the same time, because if there is not, then I think that there's something being lost in terms of our collective humanity.
I believe everybody here at this table feels more pain for those kids than Hamas of their own kids.
Of course they do. Of course they do, but we are in the wealthiest country of the world. Israel is our ally and our partner. We have leverage here. The question is, why aren't we using it? Peter, last word.
The irony is that although Israel has destroyed most of the hospitals and most of the schools and most of the universities and most of the bakeries and most of the agriculture, you know what it is not destroyed? It has not destroyed Hamas. The outgoing head of the Shin Bet, Israel's domestic security service, said just last week that Israel cannot destroy Hamas. Hamas now is using weapons that are from Israel's own ordinance that it has dropped. This war has destroyed so many Palestinian lives, and it has not destroyed Hamas. That is the irony. You guys are talking about how much you hate Hamas. I hate Hamas just as much as you. Hamas is still there. The Palestinian people are starving to death.
They're severely degraded. Let's be honest, they're severely degraded.
They're not severely degraded. They have so many new fighters because of people taking revenge for what Israel has done to their families.
Peter Beinart, thank you very much for joining.
I'm glad he made that point. People throw this word terrorist like they have no understanding of how one could become a terrorist. And of course, like, that area is in much more, the people around there are going to be much more in danger than they ever were. Like, I don't know, try having your entire family wiped out, your childhood friends, your neighborhood and way of life. See how angry you get and what that may do to your mental psyche. But we don't know where these terrorists are coming from. Israel nor anyone else has the right to wipe out an entire population. I can't believe I even have to say that, because some Hamas members or terrorists may be amongst them. Just, again, try to step back for a second and think of this very simply. Could you imagine if we had Hamas here or any terrorists here, which we've had before? Should another country be allowed, because they acknowledge that that's the case, should another country be allowed to wipe us all out, starve us, as they try and find this terrorist? What kind of logic is that? Should they be allowed to starve us because they need to find those terrorists amongst us in the U.S.? It's obviously nonsense and just an excuse to annihilate a huge swath of people over and over until they are all gone. And I think anyone with any simple logic can understand that this has nothing to do with Hamas. This has to do with ethnic cleansing and wiping these people out. Like, we found Saddam Hussein in a effing hole on the other side of the world. Don't tell me we can't find Hamas members. And Peter mentioned it before. They're literally building houses on their land and taking houses from people who live in the West Bank, where Hamas is not even at. If the plan wasn't to get them all the hell out of there, why would you do that? And again, unbelievable to me that there's Democrats that are siding with Israel on this. Oh, they're our ally, blah, blah, blah. Like, really, are they? Those same people that are saying all this about they're our ally and Israel is our ally, I don't want to hear you guys talking about Epstein. Because if you cannot see the parallels there. But I'm going to leave it there, guys. I told you this one was going to be a tough one to watch. Please let me know what you think about all this in the comments. Please leave a like, subscribe. It really helps the channel. Really helps get the message out there. And I'll catch you in the next one.